it's Tim Patterson over at Trade Show Guy Exhibits. Find us at TradeshowGuy.net. You can do trade show exhibits with us. You can find the 2 books on trade show marketing, all there, and some freebie downloads, videos, a whole lot of stuff. But, I do this weekly. Well, it's not really weekly anymore. It used to be weekly. It's now like when I find a great guest and I have time to do it. I've been pulling back. I'm in my mid-60s. What can I say? I want to not do it as often. But I still enjoy it. I did get a chance this week to catch up with one of my favorite folks in the trade show industry. That would be Ken Newman of Magnet Productions. Ken went to ExhibitorLive here a week or so ago as we record this, as I recorded him a couple of days ago. And he'd never been, and I was curious to get his impressions, not only because it's an industry show focused on the trade show industry, to people that do trade show marketing and buy exhibits and all the services that go along with it, but also because he'd never been, and I was just curious to see what his take was it on, as well as to check in with him on how his business is doing and all that other stuff. And that is how that conversation went. It was a good one. I hope you enjoy it.
I got it.
I want to welcome Ken Newman back to the Trade Show Guy Monday Morning Coffee. Ken, how you doing? Did I catch you in the middle of yawning or something?
No. You're just in the middle of practicing a card trick.
Oh yeah, show me.
No, gosh, no. I'm just it's I don't know if I can do this here, but.
Well, Ken's been on this particular show a long time. Ken and I have known each other 12, 13 years. I don't know, 15 years. It's been a long time.
147 years, something like that.
147, it feels like sometimes. Even though he's in San Francisco, I'm up in Salem. We've hung out a few times. So anyway.
Yeah, we have.
Nice to have you here, Ken. Thanks for taking time. I know you're a really, really busy guy. So
I've been busy throughout the entire, year and a half, because I had to kind of rebuild the business and start doing,
right.
Video and film production stuff. So, but now the live thing is coming back, and I'm busier than ever. So let's
talk about that. And I know you were at ExhibitorLive over last weekend. This will be on in a couple of days on the website. So, have you worked that show before?
I haven't, and I've been asked to. I have a lot of people, as you know, that are in the same space that I'm in. We do infotainment, right, which involves magicians, jugglers, comedians, game show hosts, whatever. So there's another guy that has sort of been a fixture there. He's gone every year and does, his self-promotion. He also does some, teaches a class, about engagement and how to bring people to the booth. And because I do magic, he invited me to be sort of under his banner. And it wasn't that I didn't want to do it. It's just it always managed to coincide with with another show that I was either booked for or managing, and it just didn't time out right. And in this case, through a LinkedIn connection that I made with a guy named Lee Ali through Expo Stars, and they do some really amazing work in trade shows. I mean, really comprehensive things from sort of pre-show work to, lead generation. He's got booth staff support people all over the world, huge resource. So we've decided to partner up on a bunch of different projects. And one of those was this. He said, well, he's going to be at ExhibitorLive, and would I be sort of a spokesperson in his booth, not for my own company, Magnet Productions, but to do that for Expo? And I said, sure, why not? Finally, we worked out an agreement. And so I came with my little, dog and pony show, my little Pelican case with a few magic tricks and a table and a small amp set up on the corner of a, 10 by 10 booth, maybe. I don't know, really small.
So you're a small space. You normally operate in islands and
I've done stuff, I've done everything from 10 by 10 to 90 by 90. If they set up a huge theater and with a stage and a riser, I'll be doing a really big booth in Chicago at RSNA with, full PA system and plenty of room to run around, and just have to rely on my own natural height as opposed to the augmented height that I get from standing on a 2-foot high platform. But I just brought my little case and my thing, and I was at the corner of the booth. And the idea was we had some raffle items, and we were just going to stop people in the aisles. We had 2 booth staff support people that he provided, really talented. They did a great job. And that was the idea. He's done the show every year for, except this past year, obviously, but I think probably 4 or 5 years, maybe. And he's found it to be quite quite successful. He gets a few good leads out of it that translates to for him quite a bit of work, I guess.
It's obviously a very focused show to the to the people that do exhibits or that want to purchase an exhibit or learn about that industry. They do training and classes and all that stuff. I've been, I think, once, and it's been 9 or 10 years since I've been, but I enjoyed it. It was a good show, and I hear lots of good things about it. So, having never been there, what was your impression of the show? And I guess under the umbrella of we're in COVID times.
Still. Yeah, that's a rather dark umbrella. So the I realized they were doing it under difficult circumstances. That being the attendance was going to be lower, than probably anticipated, or definitely lower than years previous. But within a number of hours of day one, Lee was saying things like, "I'm not doing this again." And I said, "Well, look, I don't really have a frame of reference here." And he said, "Well, last year, I don't know if it was 3 days long or what. I don't really have the details, but there were dedicated hours when the show floor was the only sort of activity of that was on the schedule. So that
no classes, nothing like that. It's all
right. No competing events.
Right.
And having been through something quite similar to that at I think it was Black Hat a number of years ago, and I remember, that my client was really upset about the fact that you literally could bowl in the aisles, for hours at a time. And then I looked at the calendar. I went, "This makes no sense to me." And I remember I got on Twitter. This irritated a number of people, rather a lot. I got on Twitter and I just said, "Hey, to the management of," in this case, or I guess it was Black Hat, I can't remember. I think it was. I believe that in light of the fact that the people who are buying the booth space are essentially funding the show, that not giving them the opportunity to see the maximum number of people that are at the show is really doing them a disservice. I might not have worded it quite as diplomatically as I just did right now, because it was, I was registering my displeasure in no uncertain terms. And in a remarkably short period of time, a number of people from show management came by my booth. I didn't identify my, it was like, to their credit, they did a fair amount of forensic work, to figure out who I was, where I was, and came over and said, "Can we speak with you for a moment?" I'm like, "We really didn't appreciate." I said, "You're here. We're talking about this, aren't we?" I said, "This is a squeaky wheel phenomenon here. If I had just written a letter after the show, I don't know that I would have gotten any kind of response." And I said, "But I think you really need to reconsider how trade shows operate, particularly in light of, and this is not unique. I mean, we know this at virtually. I mean, I've done trade shows.
Do that.
Yeah, I've done trade shows since 1984, 5, whatever, and very often have seen situations where most of the time the 8-hour day of the trade show is like, it just ebbs and flows. I mean, there'll be periods when it's crazy busy, and periods where, as I said, you could bowl in the aisles. And in the case of ExhibitorLive, it was just quiet almost all the time. And at the end of day one, I mean, I think he had something like 25 or 30 engagements of any type, let alone qualified ones. It was just people coming by and, a few, very, very few and very, very far between. And he was really upset about it, as were a whole boatload of other exhibitors I spoke to, quite honestly. They were just like, what did we pay for if we didn't get, I think they may have taken a day off. And I do believe many of them said that there were at least blocks of hours in the past that were exclusively for the trade show floor. I believe they may have even had lunch, something somewhere nearby so that people could, it just struck me so odd that an organization that is fundamentally embedded in this industry would miss something so key to, to the success of a trade show. I mean, it's kind of a shock. The second day, it was, I don't know if the traffic wasn't dramatically better. And again, a lot of this had nothing to do with it, but they can control how many people were, comfortable coming. Yeah. So I'm not going to hold their feet to the fire on that one. But by the second day, we think we picked up another 65, 70. We probably ended up with about 100, and they were actually solid engagements. We had some really good conversations, people that, genuinely got, what we were talking about and seemed to embrace the idea of a certain type of, the way between Expo stars and what our philosophy is at Magnet about, connection and creating empathy and communication and all that stuff. So ultimately, I think he feels that the show had value, but he also talked about what he's going to do to do next year if he does come back to negotiate a far better booth position.
Right.
There are also a couple of other things that I noticed that they did that, it might be worth, having a discussion about. There were a lot of people that didn't show up. And somebody that we know together, Anders, was there, and he was all the way sort of at the edge of, they had somehow either screwed up the name because he's rebranded his company from Infotainers to Engagify, and he'd moved, maybe they gave him kind of not exactly a preferred position. So he talked to them at the end of the first day and said, I'd like to move this. And he did. He literally, him and his assistant lifted up their screen and paraded across to the middle of the floor, which is where they were supposed to be. But I think, it could have been the kind of thing, if they knew 2 or 3 days beforehand that people were not showing up, that I think, again, in service to the exhibitors, they could have kind of and said, hey, why don't you move over here? You move over here. You move over here. We'll put up curtains here. And creates, the psychology, right?
Yeah, sure.
That if you're in a smaller space and it's crowded, it feels energetic and that there's something going on.
That's why you go to some shows and, half of the 2/3 of the hall is closed off, but everything is jammed in one end. And it feels like,
I realize
there's a lot going on here. Yeah.
Right, there's another issue because, social distancing and what have you, but there was no concern with that. I mean, frankly, when they had their cocktail reception on the evening of the first day, it was, they crammed everybody pretty much into the center. Nobody was wearing a mask, very few people, if anybody. They were serving alcohol. There were no snacks or anything, but it was very much kind of like a pre-COVID party,
Right.
and it didn't
well,
feel.
I've heard those types of stories of shows in the last few months, and the framing is, and I've heard this a number of times, is that there's less people, there's less exhibitors, but because of that, there are more valuable conversations. And as time goes by, those leads turn out to be more valuable. It's hard to say at this point if that you're just a week out of the show. So I'd be curious to see if you had observed anything like that, because you did mention deeper conversations on the second day.
Yeah, there were definitely deeper conversations, and they were like people that just they were willing to spend the time and really kind of get the story. I can tell you from my experience at Black Hat that many of the companies that were exhibiting there felt that, it was small. It was, I think, about 25 to 30% of its normal attendance. But people did feel that they had good engagements. I mean, these were not people who were just kind of coming around to grab free swag. They were really there to,
well, I guess, if you're going to go to a show under these circumstances, you're probably pretty serious about being there. And so you're going to take that time. So
if you're going to do a 5-hour flight wearing a mask and deal with all those people screaming and,
it's really important for you to be there for whatever reason. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I did feel that was the case at Black Hat. Some people said that they felt that was the case at HIMSS, which happened right after Black Hat. And then what was the other one? That, a couple of other friends of mine who've done shows said that they, two things. First, that they felt it was a little easier to get a crowd, at least among the magicians and the infotainers that I know. People were very, like, yeah, please entertain me. Let's do something.
We need something.
Let's get back. Yeah, we need to get back to the way life used to be. Come on, let's do this. Yeah. And it was wonderful. That was delightful to see, and definitely was the case in Dubai. That was amazing.
Yeah, you mentioned in the green room that Dubai was quite interesting. So how would you compare that with what's going on there to the US writ large?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that, that play into that. They have something like a 90% vaccination rate over there. Their incidence of, COVID is considerably lower. I think they even had GITEX live last year. I mean, right in the heart of, in the middle of the pandemic, and they didn't see, they're very, very careful. I mean, you walk into the building, there are all these security people, pointing to your face saying, cover up, cover up, cover up. Admittedly, as a cultural thing, there are a lot of people whose faces are already covered, quite honestly, right. Wearing, just whatever they wear, from wherever they happen to be. But it was a lot of people in very close proximity and everybody wearing masks. There were, I presented and, did presentations for 2 solid days. The middle one we couldn't do because of the one person testing positive. But I didn't see anybody presenting or speaking or doing anything without a mask. There were people walking around. They weren't quite as successful with the body count per booth. I mean, because they would, based on the square footage, they would say no more than 9 people, and it was posted on every booth. No more than 9 people, 14 people, 22 people. So leading into the show, we were told after we do the presentation, we were to leave the booth and just go someplace else, so that that it would allow for 2 or 3 more potential customers to come into the booth. So, but that wasn't as strictly enforced as the mask rules were.
Well, you've been to a number of shows in the last several months. I'm curious how you see the next 4 to 6 months unfolding. You think by the end of that, the next half year, that things will be quote unquote normal, or are we still going to be in this situation for a while?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more on the optimistic side than some people that say, "Oh, it's never going to come back the way it was." Like, yeah, come on,
it will.
People were talking about trade shows being over 15 years ago. It's like, oh, that's it. The virtual world is going to. I think a lot of the companies that dip their toe into, if not into, I mean, not just the virtual waters in general. I mean, in terms of SKOs and and other types of meetings, but virtual trade shows where there was like a virtual booth and an avatar taking people. I haven't talked to anybody. The only company that did it well, I think, was Apple. And they had very short, like 2 and 3 minute presentations.
Yeah.
But some other companies, larger companies who shall remain nameless, did their virtual trade shows at great expense, and have all pretty much told me it was a colossal waste of money.
That's what I've heard.
I mean, it's hard enough.
95% of the time that happened. Yeah. There's a few that came out smelling like a rose, but not too many.
No, I mean, by and large, it's difficult enough, as anybody who does trade shows knows, to get someone to stop, come off the gray aisle carpeting onto the tyranny of the actual booth, where they might actually be approached by a salesperson or a product, specialist, and that's in a live venue when you're offering, free stuff and entertainment and a whole bunch of other things.
And you can't really escape that easily. Whereas,
try to do that in a virtual,
Yeah,
in a virtual framework, where you've got an avatar. Hello, please, welcome.
Yeah, right.
It's like, no, thank you. I'll just play Candy Crush or watch cat videos. But so there is a real hunger. I just got off the phone with a couple of clients that, we're already booking a bunch of shows for AWS reInvent, which is coming up at the end of November. I've got 4 clients at that show, which is, as good as many as I had last year, 2 years ago. But I'm not even going to be there because I'm going to be at a radiology show in Chicago, RSNA, which is a huge show. And then RSA, we're booking, booth staff support people. We've got 4 pretty much confirmed clients at that show already. And, that's not always been the case 2.5, 3 months out. I mean, what are we now in? Beginning of November, December, January. Yeah. So we're like 3 months out, and we're already getting people signing on for that, talking to people about CES, about Microsoft Exchange, or one of the Microsoft shows in June or July. So, I think a lot of companies, I mean, there are going to be a number of companies that just reevaluating their trade show strategy and say, well, we did 8 shows a couple of years ago. Maybe we'll only do 4. We found that there are certain ways of engaging with our customers that virtually worked really well, not virtual trade shows, but just, customer events, just basically saying, okay, we're going to send out 700, 800 invitations to people we want to talk to, and put together some kind of a meeting on some platform, and have entertainment, and have, roundtable discussions and whatnot. And they're seeing, that's
I think if it's really focused and it's not spread over a bunch of time, that would succeed. I know you've done some short videos, they're entertaining things for some clients in those types of meetings that, from my impression, they would be very well received, so.
Oh yeah, that's been an unbelievable year for that. We did a big thing for a company where they had, first year we did it, they had an Olympic theme, so we had everything sort of Olympically themed. The second one was more of like an adventure Indiana Jones thing. So we did, video parodies of Indiana Jones. We did, people base jumping. We got stock footage of base jumpers where we do the voice of the person as they're flying down, or ice climbing, or you name it. So we kept it thematically connected to their meeting. And over the course of a 4-hour day and a 3-hour day, we've had probably about 12 or 15 little interstitials that kind of helped, like little palate cleansers during the course of this meeting. And then another company booked us there were 4 Thursdays to the month of July, I think it was, 3 sessions on each of those days, about an hour and a half long. and we had one element for each one of those, like a funny way to introduce a speaker, but with a horror movie preview, and and so
I've seen your stuff, and it's very creative. So I'm sure that went over.
Well, it is.
One more thing before I let you go, Ken. I know you're busy, and it's late Friday when we're recording this. Your music stuff. I keep seeing you're working on a new album. Is that thing going to come out here soon, or what?
Well,
you've been like a year into this, or two. I don't know. Maybe 3.
Yeah, it might be. If you talk to my producer, he'll say it's been 3.5. Or get the damn thing out already. Well, it was supposed to come out before COVID, but I didn't want to do an album release concert online. I just, the idea of doing a rock and roll thing, and just with a drummer and a bass player and just kind of screaming into a camera, that did not strike me as fun at all. So we held it, and held it. And the intention is to release it on vinyl. And we actually finally, this is what's called a test pressing. Ooh. This is where they take it. This is not the album cover. The album cover is actually pretty remarkable. It was developed by a local artist named Nemo, and it's an incredible piece of art. I mean, it's beautiful. And it'll be a gatefold. It's dedicated to my mom, who recently passed away. There's actually on the back of the album is somebody getting mom tattooed on their arm. So that was my tribute to her. And this is for those of you who are too young to have ever seen anything like this. This is vinyl. It's actually, it starts as a liquid and it turns into a solid, and they make it.
And you play it from the front to the back.
You play it from the front to the back. And when it's done, you have to get up and flip it over.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like walking across the room to change the channel.
Remember I mean, when I was in college, without getting too, when I was in college, and you were on a date, the whole thing was like, if you put an album side on, if this was part of like how this date was going to go, if you're, sitting on the couch, kissing and whatever, at the end of that first side, it wasn't start. You had to get up, the album selection was key. I mean, it was like you would listen to one song after another by the same artist. Can you imagine?
I know.
No shuttle. There was no shuttling.
Crazy. Yeah. But anyway, it's always good to catch up with you.
February.
I'm looking forward to it. You'll have to sign a copy for me.
Oh, I will absolutely do that. I'll etch it right into the vinyl.
Yeah, there you
go. Oh, wait a minute. That doesn't work, does it? No,
that doesn't work. No. All right. Love you, Ken. Be well. Thank you again.
Back at you. It's really great to see you, Trade Show Guy. Take care, Tim. Bye.
Thanks again to Ken Newman of Magnet Productions out of San Francisco, although they basically work around the world with all the folks that he has working for him. Let's see. You can find him at tradeshowpresenter.net. There you go. This week's one good thing before I leave, I just picked this up. Like I say, pick it up. It's a heavy set. It's called The Lyrics, Paul McCartney. If you're a Beatles fan, a Paul McCartney fan, which I am greatly, it is an incredible package. It's just not every song that he ever wrote, of course, but 150, 200 of them has like copies of the lyrics, stories about how the songs came about, lots and lots of pictures from his personal collection, just fun stuff. I would highly recommend it. It's this week's one good thing. I'm Tim Patterson. This is Trade Show Guy. Monday morning coffee. We'll do it again soon. Hope you look around for us and find us at SoundCloud or at TradeshowGuyblog.com or, of course, at TradeshowGuy.net.